It's been a few weeks. We took a random break in the middle. I was out of town. Can't have the show without me. I mean, what are they gonna do?
The real
Um,
star.
it'll be like, what was it, 2.5 Men? That's what it'll be. Is that what it's gonna have to? I know. I'll be the half. It's okay. Well, as always, we have with us our CEO of the Eric Stewart Group and my two subject matter experts, Mr. Eric Stewart, and our Director of Operations and Sales, Mr. Robert Garcia. Gentlemen, thanks for being here again.
Good to see that you're back, Amir.
I was waiting for it. You were going to say something. I was waiting for it.
The show can go on at last because you're here now. Thank you, Amir.
I appreciate you making me feel better.
Good to have you back, Amir.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to do a little bit as the disclaimer that I normally do with what our title is going to be or the topic of today's show is going to be. And kind of what the concept of the show is. And we lost Mr. Garcia's video. Can't have the show without his video. Oh no, it's all right. He'll be back. But in the meantime, think about something fun you would want to share, something fun you did this past weekend or the last week or the few weeks we haven't had the show. And that'll be our icebreaker, as we'll call it, for today. Well, welcome to Real Talk. Real Talk is brought to you by the Eric Stewart Group to help you navigate today's crazy real estate world. We'll be discussing everything from buying, selling, and everything in between. This show is not just for consumers. It's also for our fellow agents and anyone who might have any interest in real estate. The goal of the show, as we always say, is just to bring the truth in real estate. And as, some endorsements we've got in the past is the honest hand in real estate or the truth serum. Today, we're going to talk about two of my favorite things, and you guys will see how much fun I had with it when we discussed the presentation. The one thing is about objections, right? What is an objection? What are the objections these guys have heard for the last, many years they've been doing real estate? And what makes an agent a professional, a pro, right? I don't know why I did this, but I think it fit in. But what makes an agent a professional at what they do? And how do you tell them apart from the rookie? Or what are some red flags you should look out for? So that's all the fun things we will talk about today. Before we get into that, Mr. Garcia, last time we talked was almost three weeks ago. Tell us something fun you've done since those 3 weeks.
Something fun that I've done. Gosh, all kinds of things probably. Probably one of the nicest things I can say I've done. It's one of my past clients bought a house, and right the day that he bought the house, he went into the attic and he said that he found a dead mouse since over there and he couldn't get it out. So he calls me freaking out. He said, "Hey, there is a dead mouse and really stinks. How can we get him out?" And I said, "You want me to come over? Oh, that would be very helpful if you can do that." so I'm the exterminator now.
Many hats.
Yeah, so I went over. We had a great time. We were just talking about different things and so on. So it was great. I mean, but I was just funny because I saw the text message. And he's like, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, it's pretty obvious. Just get up there and get it out." But he didn't have the guts to do it. So I went over. I did it. I think that was fun.
Add a exterminator to your toolbox as well.
Yeah. Next time I title Director of Sales Operations /exterminator.
I'm thinking we just remove the director, just move the operations and sales, right? And let's just do director of mice removal. Eric, how about you? Something fun?
Took my daughter MK, who was my personal assistant this summer here in my real estate business. She's a business major at college, and I took her to see the ABBA concert at Wolf Trap maybe two weeks ago. And it was not ABBA, but it was a group, dressed up like them, and it was quite fun. All the good songs, and everybody, the whole audience knew every song. I don't know about you, but when I hear a really good song on the radio, I feel like I found something. And that's the way I felt when ABBA came out back in the 70s was like, oh, I've discovered them, and then you realize when you get older, everyone discovered them. Yeah,
I was
that
the
was a
first
great,
one, I promise.
that was a great, it's just that way with music. So anyway, good
Yeah.
music transcends all religions and all all people groups, and so it's something
Yeah.
that everyone enjoys. It was really fun. Also went the other night with a good friend to see A.R. Rahman perform, who is the one who wrote the song, the lead song for Slumdog Millionaire, and he's written a lot of great music on from India. Great guy. So really fun time. It was just packed. It was crazy. So good times, nice weather. So yeah. How about you, Amir?
Oh, flipping the script on me. I like it. Something fun. So I was at the huge soccer fan, love DC United. They broke my heart this year, but that's okay. They tend to do that to me. But I was at the game where they won 2-1 at the 95th minute. And the fun part was I was able to get on ESPN because I guess I was just celebrating a little too hard. So I was on their highlight tape.
You need to bring that photo up here. I want to see that photo here. Can you show that? It's great. Bring it up if you can. Okay. All right.
I can. I will bring it up. It's
That's classic.
it was fun. It was a pretty fun game. We had a great time. They won. I want to say there was probably I want to say it was like it was like 5 minutes left in the game, and at the 95th minute they score the game-winning goal. And I will tell you, I did not have a voice. We were at here, let's see if okay, it looks like I'm crying in this picture, but I'm really not. But it does look like I'm crying a bit. But this was let's see if I can I'll turn this off.
Okay.
This was me.
Oh
screaming.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It looked like I was crying, but the thing was, it was raining a lot, and there may have been some tears, but I'll go down saying there was never a tear.
Hey, that's the word Casamigos tells you something.
There were some consumption of Casamigos, and it was not a smart idea on a Sunday. Okay, fine, I'll admit that too. But it was a good game. Okay, I can't knock it. But yeah, so that was my fun fact outside the Casamigos, because that was not fun. But yeah, so gentlemen, I want to jump into objections, because I think that's something that not only as real estate agents, right? You hear objections all the time, whether it's at home or the 2-year-old asking you, but why? So I'm going to read the definition of an objection. And then what I would love to hear from both of you is, what are the typical objections you get as a realtor? All right. So objection, an expression or feeling of disapproval or opposition. This is my favorite one. A reason for disagreeing. So Eric, you're at a listing appointment and you're through your presentation. They love you, but they have a disagreement with you. What are the objections you see in that listing appointment? Give me some of your favorite ones.
Well, so what's fascinating is, like yesterday, I was on a listing appointment in Northwest Washington, D.C., and the homeowner brought up an objection. And it wasn't an objection to something I said. It was something that 3 other real estate agents that she had interviewed had told her that she needed to do. And it was like a bookshelf in her in one of the bedrooms in her house, that when you walked in, there was a bookshelf to the left that was built into the wall. And she said, I've had 3 other realtors tell me that I need to remove this. What do you think? Now, listen to that. Just the tonality was almost exactly what I just represented. She brought up the objection. She obviously did not want to remove the bookshelf. So the question for me is, again, my integrity is, do I really think that's necessary? Well, in the scheme of this sale, it's a house that's packed with stuff, and she's going to end up moving first and then selling, in which case the bookshelf will be empty, in which case it really isn't going to be an objection by the time she actually gets on the market. And I said, no, I disagree. I don't think you need to worry about that. And she said, really? And I said, yeah. She said, well, 3 other realtors, like as if I hadn't heard her, 3 other realtors told me I need to remove that. And I said, well, here's my thinking on it. I think if you remove it, you're removing something that's going to be empty anyways. And she said, exactly. So she raised an objection, which I was able to overcome very easily because I understood also the timing. And so it's the objections oftentimes are just like you say, disagreements. And so, like for instance, if I'm on a showing appointment, somebody walks into a house and they excuse me, they look at the floor and they see carpet and they say, oh, you've got carpet in the house. Now I could jump on that and I could say, well, yeah, isn't it great carpet? And maybe they don't want carpet, right? Maybe they're allergic or whatnot. So it's good to ask questions when there's an objection. If someone brings something up, just ask for clarification. That's a key element of me understanding. So let me ask for better understanding because I may not understand what's really important to them. If they ask for a brokerage, a discount on brokerage, well, what did you have in mind? In other words, help. I want to understand clearly what it is that they're asking me before I give an answer, because in the assumption, you know what happens when we assume, right? So
break the word down.
Exactly. What about you, Robert?
So as you've seen it, we all face all kinds of objections, and there is a coach that a lot of realtors do follow, and he basically says is he doesn't want to put it as a disagreement. It's just an objection. The way he puts it in the back of a client's mind is just an unanswered question. Basically, that's the way it is. It is still a doubt in something like that. So I have faced all things about. I mean, when I was pretty young, people look at me like, so you're telling me you're the one going to be selling my house? I mean, you look like you just got out of school, right? Like just like high school. Why would I need to hire you? And you always have to start bringing the value, not being an American native. So just working like with cultural challenges and other things. Well, you didn't go to a local school, things like that. So you really have to do a lot more of a homework. But at the end of the day, a technique that I have used and implemented all the time is the isolation of an objection. Basically, you just need to make sure that the person you're working with at that point, the client that it's interviewing you, it's pretty much happy with most of your presentation, most of your tactics, the strategy, and so on. And you just need to put in the microscope the main issue why this person is not ready to sign and move forward with you. I remember this, and this is something that I learned from Eric. This is a strategy I used a couple of years ago, right when COVID started. I met this couple and they had listed the home. This is here in Olney. They listed the home with somebody else. House went under contract and home inspection, everything. And right like 2 weeks before settlement, the whole deal falls apart because the listing agent was not able to maintain the expectations when it comes to home inspection. The seller got mad, fired the agent. So they called me and they say, hey, we met you at a Home Depot before. We were very impressed with you. Can you come over and talk with us? So I went over and sat with them and talked. And then at the end of the conversation, my presentation, 45 minutes to an hour, they said, we really like what we're seeing here. I think my wife and I need some time to talk about, this. And I said, no problem. Let me just step outside of the house for 10, 15 minutes. I'll make a couple phone calls where you guys have that. I think that's, be plenty of time. And I remember using that strategy. The guy came back, like not even 10 minutes of me outside on the phone. He comes back and calls me and said, you're good. You're hired. Come over. Let's sign the paperwork. So imagine a rookie agent would have probably said, okay, Mr. Seller, then I'll let you think about it. I'll go home. And then you call me whenever you think you're ready, right? And then they will never call you. And I've been there many times. I'm sure you've been there before. So that's sort of like, the essence of this is to really identify what's that unanswered portion of your presentation. And the next thing is it's about value. If you don't bring any value to the client, to the prospect, the customer, then why do they need to hire you? So you need to also be able to articulate value when you're doing a presentation for a product or service.
Yeah, well, I'm going to jump on the back of that, Robert. Thanks. And great example of not exiting the relationship in the meeting, but just exiting the house and just, putting yourself outside. And so it becomes very clear because you're putting you're putting them in a position where you're objecting to them by saying that's no problem. Like you're giving them the reason to continue the relationship. I'll step outside, and you go outside and it could be cold. It could be rainy. It could be whatever. And they'll be like, no, you can go downstairs. All of a sudden, you're downstairs playing with the kids, so,
Right.
so, for an objection. So if I may just say, we're in a process, we're doing boot camp with our group, which is a process to help our agents go through learning the scripts, because like any actor who memorizes lines for a play, you have to memorize the lines and then own the lines. They have to become something that's just natural to who you are. And if you don't, then you're going to kind of muffle through it and maybe even discount your own ability to communicate what's going on up here because it's not coming out of your mouth. Real change comes through the lips and the fingertips. And so as you're speaking and you can speak something consistently, good case for Amir and Robert was the alternative choice objection handling technique. Well, I'm not free tomorrow. Okay. Well, how is Wednesday or is Thursday better? Overcoming an objection with a choice as opposed to a yes or no question. Really, because at the end of the day, it's not a manipulation. What is it? It's about helping the client decide what's in their best interest. If you have the heart to help a buyer or a seller on the sale of their property, go through this process of learning scripts so that you can guide them through getting to where they want to go. Okay, that's where your mind always has to be about what's in it for them, the WIFM, as Floyd Wickman, trainer, used to say, the WIFM. So anyway, it's great to learn those scripts, and they're very important. And Robert, great job on that. I want to know though, how did you meet them at the Home Depot because you were an operations sales manager working at Home Depot Exterminator, or what? What was going on?
He was buying mouse traps.
Right, getting a refill of supplies, right?
Yeah, he was running
your extermination business.
I was actually buying a remote opener for a garage for a final walkthrough that it needed that thing, and the guy's just right ahead of me, very patiently just browsing at this magazine, and it's just like and I'm like, dude, I have to go. And there is no, of course, it's that time with everybody of the people at the front are taking a break. It's only one person, and that's the slowest of all. And I'm like, I have people waiting for me at settlement right now. So as he's looking at the magazine, there is actually a real estate magazine. He's looking at it, and I said to him, I said, hey, real estate, huh? I said, you're looking to buy or sell? Are you in the market right now? And he said, well, as a matter of fact, we've been thinking about selling our house. We're going to be relocating to Georgia, retirement, and we've been thinking about, but we already have a realtor. I said, hey, no problem, hey, good for you. Maybe you're open to a second opinion. Have you, interview more than one realtor?
Look at that.
No. Yeah, he said, no, we only interview one person. And he said, oh, okay. So, well, why don't you give me your business card, right? And he said, well, I know he's going to take my business card, put him in the pocket, ended up in the laundry one day, and that business card, image, a picture of the exterminator, it's gone, right? So I said, no problem, here it is. And I said, hey, let me do something. I'm going to also text you my digital business card just in case you lose this one. What's a good number I can text you my digital business card?
Good follow-up. Good close.
Yeah. And he said, oh, yeah, here's my business card. And what's your name? He said, I'm so-and-so. Okay, great. I'm so-and-so. I'll follow up with you in a couple of days, which I did. And, we started the whole relationship, and that took me to sell this house.
Look at you, man. Extermination as a niche opportunity to get business. I think you're the first person I've ever met that's used extermination in order to get people to list property. So congratulations. We're going to have to do a whole show on that. All right.
Yeah. Next time we do the show, it's going to be on how to get rid of mice from your house. So because we're going to get into techniques, right? We're going to get into all those techniques. But what I want to go back to, Eric, is something you said, which is the example you gave, which was you took your past experience, right, with the timing. New agent walks in, or whatever agent walks in and says, oh, that bookshelf is an eyesore. They probably didn't understand the time of the market that we're in, where the bookshelf could have been laid down across the whole house, and people would still buy it. So that's, I think, outside of the objection handling, understanding your surroundings, right? That's a huge
Mhm.
thing. And then also not being afraid to, you don't always have to agree with your client, because I'm sure that will get you in trouble in some way or another, because you just keep agreeing. But I like what you said with about just listen. Or if somebody asks you for a discount, right? I mean, we've seen it. Hey, well, so and so is going to do it for 2%. Why do you get 3.5 or whatever? Like, why does that happen? And it's asking that question. Well, what do you think is fair, right? I think
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
when it comes to objections, a lot of us probably feel that it's not okay to do that, and we always try to rush to a solution. It's like, well, just ask, right? Just
Right.
ask the question and let them be the one who set the grounds for it. So I did want to come back and highlight on that, because I think that was a key thing that I didn't want that to be missed. If you're just joining us, we're in the beginning phase of discussing like what is an objection, and then some objection handling and some of the objections these guys have seen. And where I want to take this next, Eric, is, and this is for you, and Robert, feel free to kind of just jump in and give us some of your pointers as well. But it's how to handle them,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
huge, right?
Mhm.
And my favorite is this one here. And when you cover it, I'll tell you why it's my favorite. We use this method a lot internally, I feel like. I'm interested in this one. I really am. The biggest close. So, Eric, five run us through these five objections,
Okay.
and then maybe you can give us some, some quick kind of bullet points on them.
Will
And then
do. And Amir, your microphone is really scratchy, so you may want to unplug and plug back in. I'll jump
no
into
worries.
those right now. The alternative choice I mentioned already is just giving folks a couple different options, and that's kind of leading them through a process of making it easy to get to an appointment. For instance, if someone calls you and says, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you. I understand you're an exterminator and a realtor, and I'd like to talk to you about killing the mice in my house and selling it." Uh, you know,
We've done worse.
I mean, listen. I had a squirrel that killed one of my sales. It was a dead squirrel in the attic, and a pregnant woman went up the stairs during the inspection and saw the dead squirrel, and then just wouldn't buy the house. So it's amazing, Robert. I think we should have just known about this skill later, earlier in the process. We could have sent you over first. But look, the alternative choice is just giving folks a choice. It's actually a great way to communicate with your spouse, with the people that work with you. Hey, would you prefer Wednesday or is Thursday better? Or do you like hardwood floors, or do you like carpeting better? Do you prefer halogen bulbs or compact fluorescent? Or just kind of getting people down the road of making a decision is a key element of being a good agent for that person. Remember, what the agent is someone who's working for, fiduciarily looking out for the person. And as long as that's what's here, not just getting the money at the end, you're going to do the best job possible for your client, and you'll guide them through that. So that's the alternative choice. We call it the Vegas close. When you're in a contract negotiation and the distance between closing a contract and not is a very small number, but still there's an impasse between seller and buyer on the issue. When I'm working with a home seller and we're, say, $5,000 away from getting a house sold, and we're at a $750,000 sales price, I try to help them understand that they're getting $745,000, not the $750 that they want. It's kind of like going to Las Vegas and putting $745,000 on the table to win $5,000, and it's a visual. And sometimes I'll take the visual and say, here's all the money for your property. So let's just make this clear. We're going to go ahead and take. Let me take the corner. It doesn't have any writing on it. We're going to take this 5,000 and make it more important than the rest of this. Is that really what you want to do? Help them to understand. Now they might say, absolutely, I'm not budging on that 5,000. Then you can help them understand the value of money. On the buy side, what is $5,000 on a monthly basis? Well, at 5%, it's around $28 a month difference. So, which divides out on a daily basis to less than $1. for them to get that house. So when I'm working with a buyer and the seller's stuck at 750 and my client's at 745, I'll say, look, you're really just talking about 97 cents a day more for you to get the house. Do you understand that? And by the way, of the 97 cents, a third of that is going to be tax deductible because it's interest. And so it's really only costing you 65, 66 cents a day for you to get the house you really want. So it's getting them going down to the absurdity close, which is what I just did, is let's make it really almost like absurdly obvious that this is a simple decision to make. Sometimes I go from Vegas to absurdity and helping the buyer to make the decision, or the seller as well. And then number 4, the feel, felt, found is one of my favorite, because oftentimes a client will announce an objection. Well, like Robert was saying, we don't see your signs around the neighborhood. That might be something where maybe you don't do a lot of business as a real estate agent in a particular neighborhood. Or if you're in another business and you happen to be watching this, think about your business and you're trying to win the opportunity to work with someone, but you don't have a lot of experience either in their geographic location or maybe in the specific needs that they have. So what you're going to do is say, you recognize the truth of what they're saying. I understand how you feel. And I would probably feel the same way you do. Or I felt the same way you do when I'm working with somebody that I don't know. I don't see them. I'm not familiar with them. But what I've found is that it's not in this case, it's not in how many times you see my sign. It's in my capability to overcome objections, just like this one, and my ability to win the negotiation for you as a home seller. And so I've acknowledged the objection, agreed with it, and now I'm redirecting that to what's the real concern. Because it's not about signs in the neighborhood. It's not about how many times you've sold a house. It's really about, can you handle this? Maybe I don't know that you can handle this. Maybe I don't know that you know what the benefits are of my neighborhood. And this thing is, I liken this to a ranger parachuting in to a geographic location and getting a sense of the terrain so that we understand how to win the battle, right? And in real estate, if you're going to go into a neighborhood where there's a park nearby, there's a specific school and so on, you want to walk in that door and really understand what it is that potential client has to offer and sell. So like Warren Buffett says, price is what you pay, the value is what you get. As a realtor, you want to sell the value of the location. And that's really, again, that's really the concern when they say, we don't see your signs a whole lot. So feel, felt, found is number 4. And then lastly is the porcupine. So Robert, do you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, definitely. The porcupine, it's one I think that we use a lot. So basically, you're given an objection or you're given a statement by the person you're interviewing and trying to work with, and then you basically just rewrap the whole statement and send it back as a question. So a few minutes ago at the intro, Amir was porcupine by Eric when he asked he did anything fun, and then he came back and just grabbed the same thing and porcupine him over there. So it's in essence, it's just to change the wording, change the order of the idea, rewrap it, put it together, and send it back to the other person. And that's just to seek that we make sure that we both are on the same. Like, it's, in other words, you're saying, Eric, if I'm hearing you clear, you're telling me this. Is that correct? And rather than saying it, that is just basically just rewrapping, using the same words and many times that they came from the person you're working with. So that way you can continue with the conversation. Because at the end of the day, it's about clarity, right? You bring clarity to the conversation, to the strategy. I think the client will be super happy to go and sign with you.
One thing,
if you don't mind, could you clarify what you meant by clarity?
I just be porcupine.
He was porcupine. I just want to add one thing. It's called the Porcupine Method, but it doesn't have to be. I think people might hear the Porcupine Method and think it's this aggressive way of going back at people, right? Or like reiterating the question, and it's so bad. It's not. It in all reality, exactly what Robert said is like, I came with a question to Eric and Robert, and I said, hey, tell me, what did you do fun in the last 3 weeks? And Eric came back and said, well, Amir, what did you do? That's how you use that method, right? So it doesn't have to be this aggressive way of doing things. It can be used in a friendly way. And I think in all of these, the tone you use and how you say it and how the delivery goes is probably huge as well. Robert, I'm going to ask you in a little bit to give us, and Eric, for you as well, but I have a question for you, Eric, where I want to again reiterate something you said, which I think is huge. But Robert, I'm going to ask you to tell us which one of these techniques has worked best for you. But so think about that. Eric, you mentioned at the beginning alternative choice. And you said something that kind of stuck out to me, and I think everyone listening and watching this should try to do this immediately in their business. Is you said instead of kind of giving yes or no questions, right? So instead of saying, well, does Wednesday work for you? That's a yes or no question. And then what you said was, well, does Wednesday at 2:30 or Thursday at 2:30 work best for you? That right there, right? The open-ended question, the yes or no to the alternative choice, that's huge. And I think if you're any business owner, that technique, you can use any of these techniques, honestly, in any business. But
Right.
I wanted to definitely come back and highlight on that. And question for you, Eric, is for some of us who may not feel comfortable enough to do that, right? We're new to business, new to whatever industry we're in. What are some things what are some pieces of advice you would give someone to make them feel comfortable with some of these methods that they can use?
Well, just take one. It starts with one, and don't try to get all five down at the same time. And like anything, I'm a marginal tennis player. I like to play, and I take a class with a group of other people called Evolution, which is to suggest that I would actually evolve in the game of tennis. And it's just a slow go. Just learning how to do an overhead, or learning how to serve, learning how to return, and so on. And so in the same way, I have to inculcate that learning, which inculcation means it becomes a part of me. And it's just natural, and it comes out of me that I will put my foot in a certain direction and swing my racket. Visually, this is a good analogy. Same thing in the words that come out of you. Remember, it all starts with the motivation. It all starts with the why am I here? We're here to help people buy or help people sell, and to guide them through that decision. But even bigger than that is the question of, should they be buying? Should they be selling? And let me help them help themselves through that decision. And so if I keep that perspective, and if you keep that perspective, you'll always approach your client from a place of humility and with a desire to serve them. And so your choice of how you handle will actually come out naturally as you practice one objection handling technique and really, really learn it. If I were you and I were going to choose one, I'd probably start with the feel, felt, found, because it's acknowledging what other people are saying is a key element of good communication among all humans, regardless, whether it's your children, spouse, friends, business people, church people, whatever it might be, is just listening and really hearing what they say. I've also heard another method for this, which is called the fast food method for communication. You go to the fast food and you order your French fries, your Coke, and your burger or chicken sandwich. And then what does the person say once you've ordered? So that's a Coke, French fries, and a chicken sandwich. They give you back exactly what you've said to acknowledge that they've got it right. And you give them a confirmation. That's right. Or no, especially when there's like 5 things you're ordering, right? No, they're like, oh, no, I don't want that. I want, or, you change your mind. How many of you all change your mind in the middle of ordering fast food? All of a sudden, that chicken sandwich that you thought you wanted is not what you really want. You want, burger with whatever. So it's that way. Think of it the same way. Fast food, repeat back and make sure you get it. And that's a good way for you to feel, felt, and found them. So,
Mr. Garcia, give us which one of these would you say is your favorite one to
your
use?
mic is struggling there, my friend. Sorry. Yeah, Amir, I'll just take over for you. Robert, which is your favorite of these different objection handling techniques?
Well,
let's do this. Okay.
The feel, felt, found, it's probably one of my favorites, and only it's because I think at the very beginning there is an agreement. with the person, right? So, you don't want to tell a prospect, no, I disagree with you, you're wrong. I mean, that disqualifies you right there, and they'll kick you out of the door immediately, right? Because they're not want to hire someone to go against them. They just want to hire someone to actually let them understand if the decision they're making is the right one, or there is a better solution, right? There is an alternative. So in many cases, when people are just, telling you, hey, I spoke with this other realtor, and they tell me they charge this, but you are now saying you charge more than the other one.
Mhm.
And I always be like, you know what, I don't disagree with you. If I will be on your shoes as a seller, I will probably considering the one that is actually is going to charge me less to sell the house, right? It's just you are agreeing with them in that moment, and they feel like immediately like disarmed, like, I'm sorry, like, yeah, I mean, if I were you, like, exactly what I'll be doing. But like, it always go, and then he's like, I know how you feel. This is how I felt. This is what this is what I found out. And then you go, like, would you be against me showing you why working with this person that discounting the commission up front, it's not a good idea. And they're gonna say to you, yeah, no, I'm not against. Go ahead, tell me, and then you just kind of give. So wrapping that in that 3-step process, it's great. And I've been able to get so many things out of that not only in real estate, but also in other things in life. And they send you the wrong order at the restaurant and something like that. You use that, and immediately you have someone apologizing, and all of a sudden there's the meal was free, right? That's
Sometimes.
how it works.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah. And Robert uses that consistently on me, and I just always seem to be handing things over to him. I don't know why.
That's the exterminator close.
That is. It's El Mouso.
Yeah,
El Mouso. There
Oh,
you
boy.
go. I hope my mic sounds better, but if not, Eric, you'll just have to take over. I guess the mic needs it.
You sound better.
You sound
There
better.
you
Yeah.
go. Once in a while I try to sound better. All right, so let's go on to the other aspect of our conversation, which leads into this, because I think you're subject matter experts for a reason, because you've done this for long enough. You know what you're doing, how you handle the objections, and through handling objections, I think you give people, your clients, the relief that they're looking for. In all reality, from someone who's been in the shoe of buying a house, it's scary, it's a huge commitment, and you're taking on a huge, debt. I mean, it's the biggest purchase, one of the biggest purchases you'll ever make. So what I want to go into next is, how do you spot the agent to work for, right? And Robert, for you, from your perspective, what makes an agent a pro? And same thing for you, Eric, after Mr. Garcia's done. And by the way, this is one of my favorite. I had fun doing these. I think this is pretty cool. Guy going back and forth. that could be you guys right here. If you don't know what you're selling a house for, and the board comes at your face, you don't want to do that. So how do you spot the best, Mr. Garcia?
That's a very loaded question, my friend. It's not easy to say you can always spot the best, but I can tell you a couple of things. Of course, the experience, years of experience, it really matters a lot. But you can also get surprised by agents that have probably not been doing it enough, but they grew around this environment, and they maybe the mom and dad were realtors, and they're so used to that and so on. But in essence, is that always have a plan or a strategy, a solution for a given problem. And this is what we coach to the realtors here at the Eric Stewart Groups. You don't have to know it all, because that's not what you get paid for. But you got to be able to be resourceful enough to put together a solution that the outcome will be that everybody is happy. That's it. If you are able to do that in this type of environment we're in, or we have been in the past, you become resourceful, you become skillful, you become knowledgeable. I think that's a great realtor, because at the end of the day, it's realtors get paid to put deals together, right? We don't get paid to drive buyers around, to show so many houses. That's part of the process. But once a client has identified the house they love, they want to make an offer, or the seller has made a decision, it's time to move out and they need to prepare the home, that's where we need to put it together. And believe me, the negotiating process, it starts from the first time you meet with the client all the way to the date of settlement, final walkthrough at the settlement table. Sometimes we have to negotiate things where I think Eric recently had a case where he was at a table and one of the, I think he was representing the seller, and one of the buyers was actually felt that the both realtors were not fair to them, and they were asking them to give him some money at the table. And I think he can continue to tell the story, but that's the way real estate happens all the time. And if you don't know how to negotiate, if you don't know how to do those things, you're going to struggle in this industry, because this industry requires people that are very creative. Creativity is number one thing to have here. You cannot always think on a straight path. There's sometimes you have to get creative to put a deal together. And I think, Eric, we've seen so many times where you get an offer that is so low that the seller may not going to take it, buyers goes away, then they come back later, and all of a sudden, boom, you put it back together, right? It's just how this industry is, and you got to be willing to make those changes. So that, Amir, is you don't have to know it all, but you have to be skillful and resourceful to put it together.
That's so good. That's so good. And that's that sense of humility, is recognizing that we don't know everything. And if you carry that with you in conversation, regardless of who you're talking to and what you're talking about, and you recognize that there's something you're being asked that you don't know the answer to, it's just so much easier and better in the long run to simply say, that's a good question. So compliment and say, let me find out about that and I'll get right back to you. Last night, I was discussing with one of our listing clients in Virginia. I was discussing the interest that they've had in the property. Here we are in the middle of August. This is usually a really quiet month for demand. There's not as many buyers looking. They're typically on vacation or focusing on getting their kids ready for school and those kinds of things. So we normally see a lull. And so, in conversation, while we're talking, they asked questions that I didn't know the answer to about specific houses that were nearby and what was happening. And I said, that's a good question. Let me call the agent. I'll call you right back, regardless of whether I get a hold of them or not. So I did. I called the agent, called them back. I said, here's what I found out. They're experiencing less interest in their house than you are. We were trying to decide whether price was the issue. And I didn't feel like price was still the issue because of the timing of the year, but this was also a confirmation of that. So just taking the I don't know approach, but then taking the resource, being alert and looking for the opportunity to figure it out, and then getting back, closing the loop. Always, always, always close the loop with your client. And if you're watching today, we want to invite you to communicate with us. If you have specific questions about anything we're saying, you can type those in here, and we may bring it up here in the broadcast, or certainly get back to you separately. So feel free to do that. We definitely want to be responsive to what we're saying to you and what you're feeling and thinking in response. Or perhaps you have a good closing technique that you love. Feel free to share that with us here too. It's interesting. You brought up that whole thing with I was at settlement, and the buyer of a house bought the home without a home inspection and non-contingent on the sale of their property. And they put the listing that I was selling, this is a $1.5 million property, put it under contract with no contingency on inspection or home sale. And they got all the way to the point of getting ready to close, and their house had still not sold yet. And they blamed their realtor for misleading them into thinking that their house would sell like that, right? No guarantees in life. And they also blamed, this was an estate sale. So there's no disclosure in an estate sale, meaning that the seller of the property is passed. And so it's now usually heirs or trustees or selling the property. And we have a non-disclosure rule in that case. The seller, in this case, the trustees, are not responsible for the condition of the property, and the buyer accepts that. Well, at the final walkthrough, all the furniture came out. There was evidence that there had been some water that had seeped either from a broken water heater or maybe from the outside on the floor, because where the furniture was, it was taken out and there was little stains, here and there on the floor. So the buyer was upset and wanted the seller to give them $50,000 because they felt like they needed that money to make sure that they wouldn't have an issue. And so that's a major objection. the day before settlement. We're not going to settle unless you give us $50,000. And the buyer called me directly. They dissed their buyer agent and called me directly. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. So I'm qualifying their objection. Why would you think the seller would have the responsibility to give you $50,000? And the response was, well, because they didn't tell us, and we discovered this, and they should have told us. And there was intention to deceive. That was the accusation. And I said, okay. I said, let's just go back to the contract, which is what you always do. Always, always, always go back to the contract. I said, did you buy a home that's in an estate? And they said, yes. And I said, so therefore, there's no disclosure. What do you mean? I said, well, the estate has no responsibility because they don't live in the house. Oh, well, one of the heirs was there fixing and was spending the night. So we consider that occupancy. Therefore, they had the right to the responsibility to disclose. And it wasn't a significant argument. It wasn't one that actually had validation. So I got to the table and kept the same conversation going. And I just said, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. The seller is not. And based on my experience, what you're arguing for, you actually made the decision. It's your choice to not get an inspection at the time. And you didn't even spend the time to walk around the basement yourself to check it out. And you took that risk. And, and who's to say that this is even a $50,000 issue? The seller's not going to give you anything. And of course, this was communicated with them after I brought this to my seller. And I said, this is a situation. I don't recommend you give anything. And they said, yeah, we're not going to give anything. So we didn't give anything. The seller didn't give anything. Well, then Mrs. Buyer at the table turns to both of the agents and says, we don't feel like this is working out well for us. You guys are both making a lot of money, and we want you each to give us $5,000 so we can feel better about it. And I just stepped up to the plate. The other agent was kind of new in the business. And I said, so just so I'm clear, this is about how you feel, that you want some money. You want me to give you money so that you can feel better? Yes, that's what we want. I said, well, how do you think I feel giving you money for something that's not my responsibility? That would be dishonest to myself. You're reaching into my pocket when it's your responsibility to make the choices you make, right? And so therefore you need to own those responsibilities and live with it. And just think about it in the future next time you make a decision. And this was a very stunning response, right, to come back to somebody. But it was important because you and I are not responsible for how other people feel. It's up to them to decide whether or not they're going to take what you say or what you do, and they're going to allow it into their life. It's your choice. It's my choice. So they quieted down, and believe it or not, by the end of the settlement, they're laughing, having a good time. Everything's fine. So, you just have to be ready by asking those questions. Why do you think that? And qualify that. So it's good, Robert. I understand how somebody can feel that way if their feelings are what rule their life. And I think that's common. And I think everybody struggles with it sometimes, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, especially in our industry, because it is such an emotional decision, right? And I've said before, like when we were purchasing our house, I would walk into a house and I would go, this is wrong. That's bad. What's going on here? What's going on there? And so we had a rule. My wife said, every time we walk into a house, every 5 things you say negative, there has to be 5 positive behind it. And so I was thinking practical. She was thinking emotional. And so finding that balance was huge. Mm-hmm. We lost out on contracts because the other party was being so emotional over $800 to $900. But I think one of the things that I would say from, having been around you guys and all the deals that has come and go within our team is it's very easy for a rookie agent or a new agent to try to find a solution, right? The way that you were having that dialogue back and forth, you knew it wasn't going to be 50,000. You knew that it wasn't your responsibility, Eric, to pay for their feelings. You knew how to get to the core of the problem, which was how they felt. It's very easy for a rookie agent to say, you know what, whatever, take this 5,000. I want to be done with it. And I don't think that's right, because you're telling them that your time, what you did for them wasn't worth it. So I just wanted to add that in there. We're in a shifting market, right? We can all agree to that. There's a shift happening. And there have been agents that have come into our world, our industry, that are either part-time or doing it on the side, or just, I'm sorry to say, but are just not taking it seriously. And that hurts people like us who have taken years to build what they do and build a business behind it, so on and so forth. So what does a shifting market do to agents who are either part-timers or new to the industry? Eric, from someone who's experienced multiple of these shifting markets, what have you seen happen to those new agents? And Robert, for you, as Eric has explained that, maybe think about, you experienced it. You were fairly new to the industry, I believe, when we had that shift, our previous shift in 08, right? I mean, you were in for a few years, but maybe walk us through what that did for you. But Eric, in the past, what has a shifting market done to some of those agents?
Well, if you go back to 1990, I was in the business 3 years at the point, and we went into a recession in the DC market. All of a sudden, being a hero was not as easy. The demand was not overwhelming. When there's a massive wave of demand, it'll always take whatever's on the beach and take it out to sea, right? When the market is not quite as strong and the demand is not quite as strong, you may find somebody who prices a house and they never get into the water. And so getting clear on that while it's happening is an important recognition for any real estate agent. And we chatted about this a few weeks ago. We went into a dramatic upsurge in pricing when COVID hit that I don't think any of us expected to occur the way that it did. That massive shift to getting home, we saw prices up 35 to 40% around the DC area, and pretty much nationally, there were some markets that went up 100% in the last 3 years. So because the price of money was dropped, you could get a 2.5% interest rate on a mortgage for 30 years, basically almost like 1.8% interest rate if you take out the tax deduction that you get by writing off the interest. We saw cheap money. We saw demand to enjoy being at home more because people weren't going to work. So second home market took off, all these markets. So this incredible demand was going to come to an end by one of two factors. Either there was going to be what we experienced in 08, which was a credit crisis, which in that case was, a lot of it was due to real estate, but a lot of it was also due to just the general economic trend of coming to the end of a bull market. We were going to experience some kind of a transition. And actually it started in 2006 when we started to see that transition more clearly. 2005 even, I saw it, kind of got the sense that, you know what it's like in the fall, when all of a sudden there's a little crispness in the air, the bugs have all quieted down and passed away, and you're like, the market's shifting, like the weather is shifting. Well, the same thing happens in real estate. And what we saw was prices jumped in an enormous way this spring. And what is traditional is that home sales drop and prices tend to drift from contracts after the middle of May forward, all the way through the rest of the year, with a little bit of a blip in the fall. And, I'm not saying that was the case in 21 or in 20 because of COVID, but that's the normal trend. We went back to this normal trend where we are right now. The demand is not quite as good, but it's still good. The inventory is still really, really low. So the shift isn't so much an inventory increase as it is maybe just in fear. Stocks have dropped. People are more afraid. Maybe I'm going to take a risk. Interest rates have gone up. So the cost of money on a monthly basis, just the cost of money has gone up by 25% from where it was 7 months ago, 8, 9, 10 months ago. Okay. So what do you do with all that? I just say, recognize it, ask questions, understand it. We're 10% off the peak, maybe 12% off the peak of pricing for houses that went to contract in March and April. And that's okay. The market, the world hasn't fallen. Houses prices are still well above last year's pricing. You've got to come in with confidence and enthusiasm, because what you're going to sell is a home that people need. There's not enough of those for sale. You've got to have confidence and enthusiasm, but balance that against reality and the timing in the market. If you're getting ready to get somebody on the market for next spring, well, don't worry too much about price right now, because the market could be up next spring by the time you put it up in February, or March or April of next year. So I guess I'm boiling this down to this point, is shifting markets, whether the market's shifting to increasing demand or shifting to lower demand, is a consistency of the wave action, the sine and cosine, and the calculus of real estate sales. And recognize that that's going to happen. And if you walk in fear and you put your head down, you're not going to be able to handle, and then you'll get out of the business. And we'll see a lot of real estate agents get out of real estate because they haven't learned the techniques that we talked about, overcoming these objections. And that's why we're chatting about this today. We want to help our fellow realtors, and we want to help you as consumers. If you're just learning some of these techniques and maybe think, I'm going to use that feel, felt, vow method on my 10-year-old to get him off the PlayStation, I'm telling you, get ready. You're going to start succeeding in some new ways. All right, Robert.
Yeah, no. One of the things that as going back as Amir put the question together, is when 05, 06, 07, it was all really nice. Houses were selling, stated loans, no income verification. I mean, that was super. You just say, hey, I make $100,000. Here's your loan, buy a house. And so it was like not as in terms of skills, you really didn't need to have a lot of skills other than just to communicate, articulate well, and being able to email or fax papers to a settlement company, another realtor. And then the crash comes. And then, so where did all the buyers go? What happens? Like just a month ago, we had a lot of buyers. Where did they go? And now buyers are scared. They just don't know what to do. People that were sellers are on the fence. The market crash. Everything is bad news. Stock market's going down. Lehman Brothers. And I mean, you hear all these bad things. And so you have two options. You can continue to amplify this message that the news and media is putting and make it sound like one of them, or you can take that message and find the value of things where it says, well, if things actually are dropping, maybe there is someone or somebody out there that will see the value in buying a house and now it's worth less, so that they can buy, whether it is for long-term investment, for flipping, and all those things. So that's where like I have to reinvent myself. And how do you do that? Through training, through learning more, through practicing more, to handling more objections, through just being out there in the field, just to having the opportunity to be also behind the scenes, seeing other realtors here at the Eric Stewart Group, negotiating complicated inspections or contracts or other terms, and seeing sometimes contracts just dying and just learning from it. So I had that experience, since we always done, back then it was probably, we're doing what, 80 to 100 transactions, kind of what it was, just to see that, how all from different angles, and just being able to create and master some of those techniques. And the other thing is the pool of buyers and sellers gets reduced. It's a lot smaller. And so what happens is, if you were before making 5 to 7 phone calls to get in touch with someone, well, now you're going to be prepared to make 15 to 20 phone calls, and you still get in front of someone that is going to be very pessimistic about what the market is doing. And then you have to bring some hope. And how do you do that? Through learning, just getting to newsletters, to newspapers, to some other things, just to see how other people, I was calling investors at that point, said, hey, how do you've been through this before, where do you see the value in things? And then, people letting you know how, and that's how, was able to continue to stay relevant in this industry, because if you don't know your stuff, you can be disposed overnight as a real estate agent.
Eric, we have a question for you specifically, and hold on, I'm bringing it up. My computer's being a little bit slow. The question for you, Eric, specifically is, what makes this, and I know we've covered this in the past, so well, their question is, what makes this shifting market different than the previous one?
I think that at this point, as far as we can tell, we're not going to see a massive influx of new listings that's going to overwhelm the market. And as a result, we're going to be in a market that has less listings, which is contrary to what we experienced when we've had a recession back in the 90s, back in the early 90s. We saw a big flood of listings. You'd take a listing you hoped you could sell. Same thing in 2006, 7, 8, all the way through 12 or so. And then we saw the market saturation start to ebb and listings started to drop all the way through where we are now. We still have a really low inventory trend line and speed is still solid. If there's a recession, and just to remind us what that is, that's a contraction in 2 quarters in a row, a contraction in the overall growth of our economy nationally. 2 quarters in a row that's what qualifies us to be in a recession. If we're in a recession, is that going to actually affect real estate the same way? I don't think so. I think there's a mentality shift that's taken towards real estate over the last 15 years where investors are holding positions for rental. There are not enough rentals. Look at the price of rents right now. They've gone through the roof. When rents go through the roof, that even makes buying a house seem like a better option for investment, right? Because if you can get that much more on a monthly basis. So I think we're going to see inventory stay tight, which is going to be different. It's going to be hard to fight for listings, but we're still not going to have quite as many buyers. So agents who have been specializing in buyer work are going to struggle still in competition with other agents to get those properties. And agents who have been superfluous in their ability to get lots of listings are going to struggle still as competition. Agents are going to really be either they're going to get out of the business or they're going to focus on getting the language down, and they're in this for the long haul like we are, and they're going to get the training and they're going to get the objection handling techniques done. And if you're an agent and you're watching this and you want to join us for a boot camp on objection handling techniques, just let us know and we welcome you to join us, even if you're a part of another group. Okay. So hope that helps.
Feel free to give us a call at 800-900-9104. Of course, as always, I'll have our closing want more screen coming up soon. Robert, we have a question for you specifically is what type of trainings helped you get through the 2008-2009 shifting market?
Geez,
it goes too far back.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into a lot of things. First of all, you got to look pretty deep yourself to say, who really I want to be, where am I going to be 5-10 years from now, and just visualizing that basically what you need to do, and then you start to have to put habits in place, discipline in place, so that way you can start looking out there. Now, in terms of things that I looked at, I mean, I read several books about handling objections. I bought some online things. I went to YouTube just to see how some people have done that. Of course, there's always, like good old Tom Ferry that does a lot of good stuff there. They have sometimes some webinars you can participate, and they're free. But I think it's just to have a plan, right? How am I going to accomplish what I wanted to do? How can I be relevant? I remember just, reading home inspections and just like Googling things on what the terminology was, just to see, this and this needs replacement. And I cannot visualize what it is. I got to go there. And then just to have an idea of a cost, how much something like that will cost, because those are going to be questions that you're going to be asked. And again, you don't need to know it all, but you can say, listen, to replace a GFCI switch, it's probably going to cost you between this much and this much. And of course, if you only bring an electrician for that one particular thing, maybe it's going to cost you more because they charge more. But if you create a list of things, that probably this is where it's going to cost you. So learning those things, calling companies, contractors, learning from all other people that you're going to be surrounded, settlement attorneys, learning from lenders. Hey, what kind of financing is available out there for people that have these problems with credit, down payment, short sales, bankruptcy? Of course, once the market, a lot of people went into short sale foreclosure, then these people wanted to re-enter the market. So what kind of programs are available to go after people like them? So it's just a lot. It's not like a one thing. It's not like the Bible that I can tell you, hey, here's the Bible. If you read the Bible, you're going to have answers to all these things. No, it was a serious, I mean, I have a pretty big collection of books of things that I've read and things that I've done. So if you guys have any questions about something specific, feel free to reach out to me directly. More than happy to share more thoughts on that, so that we can have a conversation where you are in your career, then I can give you some guidance.
Awesome. Well, as I always have, I'm going to bring this up. This is our, I feel like this is going to be appropriate for our today's conversation. The mic drop. As always, if you guys want to get any information, these guides, not specifically, it doesn't talk about objection handling or some of the things we talked about today, but these are our 2 award-winning guides, the market ready guide and the right sizing guide. And if you want to get in touch with us, call us at 800-990-104. You can visit us at ericstewartgroup.com. If you want to reach out to any of us, feel free to do that. You have our social handles. And if you have any questions that you want answers to, or if you have any topics that you guys want us to cover, feel free to email that over to us or just call this 800 number and you'll get a hold of any of us.
So I'm gonna take over, Amir. Sorry, because your mic still has an issue. So
I need a mic.
You do. Time to get a mic. So yeah, call us today or visit our website if you'd like a free copy of one of these guides, right sizing or the market ready guide. The market ready guide will talk about how to get your home ready to sell, right sizing on how to get through that process of downsizing, which is a painful process for most of us. 800-990-104 if you want to have a conversation, or go to ericstewartgroup.com for more information. We'll be back in a few weeks with another exciting episode of this webcast. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you all.